Part 104. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1033. Because of Mu Yangling's repeated reminders, and the popularity of explorers in Western countries, Fan Zijin always speculates about them with the greatest malice. For him, England's envoy is not a good thing. Chi Heiran is much simpler. He believes in the supremacy of strength. Their national strength is strong, so naturally they will not be afraid of other countries' calculations. Although he can't immediately recover the lost land occupied by Dajin and Zixia, he will deal with England, who is far away. But it is not a problem. So his answer was simple and rude: ask them what they want to do it if it is beneficial, and refuse if it is not beneficial. Fan Zijin twitched the corner of his mouth. What on earth was he doing to ask him this question? But Fan Zijin still did as he said. While receiving the envoys, he sent someone to notify the Ministry of Rights and the Emperor. The reason for the English envoys to come here is very simple. They hope to officially establish diplomatic relations with Daki and provide good conditions for the trade between the two countries. The specific matters will be negotiated in Beijing. Hearing this, Fan Zijin didn't dare to hand over the matter to the Ministry of Rights. If it involved business, if it was handed over to the group of nerds in the Ministry of Rights, they wouldn't suffer. While Fan Zijin asked someone to escort the envoys to Beijing, he asked the Ministry of Rights to hand over the matter to the Ministry of Rights. He Shibosi, this is a professional. Seeing that he was not at ease, Chi Heiran said, if you are afraid that the officials of the Ministry of Household Affairs and the Department of Shipping will look down on commercial affairs, why not nominate a few old and cunning businessmen to negotiate with them? Aren't there businessmen in the foreigners' negotiating team this time? The customs are different from the national conditions. How can we learn from them? Fan Zijin was still worried that Daki would suffer. He, who had been a negotiating envoy, knew how thick-skinned and cunning the Westerners were. Being able to be a pirate, the Duke can personally set up a boat to do business, but in my Daki, the scholars, farmers, businessmen, and merchants are the last, and their status is not high. Still look down on merchants and business affairs, let them work with merchants, it is more uncomfortable than killing them. Don't think it's hypocritical, it's a kind of value. Mu Yangling didn't understand for a while. These people let the servants at home do business and enjoy the benefits of doing business, but at the same time they look down on business. She has done research on this and found that this cognition is artificially promoted. The division of scholars, farmers, and businessmen was artificially promoted by everyone after the Han Dynasty. Naturally, it was not because businessmen pursued profits. Basically, they all have a valuable quality: integrity. The reason is that commercial activities can bring greater benefits to people, while agricultural activities have relatively little income, and food is the most important thing for the people. If it is not restrained, the world who will cultivate the land, and how can there be grain taxes to collect? What do you eat? Therefore, for the sake of national stability, the imperial court could only suppress the development of commerce. In addition to layers of tariffs, the status of merchants was also greatly degraded. Even since the Tang dynasty, the imperial examinations for merchants were restricted. Even now, Daki still restricts the imperial examinations for merchants. If they can also enter the officialdom, I don't know how many people will give up their farmland to do business. So when Chi Heiran mentioned this suggestion, Fan Zijin immediately vetoed it, not only because he was concerned about the courtiers' emotions, but also to limit the development of commerce. Although Fan Zijin was also a businessman, he did not look down on businessmen, but as he grew older, he gradually understood the importance of emphasizing agriculture and suppressing business, and he was unwilling to break this rule. Chi Heiran rubbed his chin and said, since the foreigner wants to talk about business matters, it's okay to let the businessman listen in. They can raise their opinions with the imperial court afterwards, and the people from the Ministry of Household Affairs and the Shipping Department will sort out their opinions and negotiate with the foreigner. Well, Fan Zijian thought about it too. He didn't give businessmen the qualifications to negotiate, but he could let them sit in and not let Daki suffer. This matter involves their vital interests, and no one cares more than them. Fan Zijian immediately wrote notes to Qi Ziyuan, but privately wrote to him to ask him to remember to select a few officials who can accept opinions and have no prejudice against businessmen when appointing. As soon as the news got out, the merchants were all crazy with joy, and rushed to the capital one after another, hoping that they would be lucky enough to be selected to listen. Even if they were not qualified to speak, at least they registered with the emperor. Because the envoy was halfway there, Qi Ziyuan didn't have time for everyone to choose slowly, so he named 5 or 6 merchants from various local chambers of commerce in the capital, and asked them to negotiate with the envoy. And 4 of these 6 people were Fan Zijian's creditors, that is to say, they used financial resources to support the construction of Daki, and the emperor had a good impression of them. Many people couldn't help stamping their feet. Fan Zijian asked many people to borrow money back then, because they all knew that although Fan Zijian had borrowed the money, it was for the emperor. Fan Zijian's money is only 5 or 6 people. Now it seems that they are right, because not only have they paid off the money they owed, but they have also left a good impression on the emperor. Look, all 6 of them have become imperial merchants, and now 4 of them can directly oversee government affairs. The other 2 patriarchs who were far away couldn't help stamping their feet. Why did they run out to do business? They should stay in the capital, so that they would have a place in the audience. The earthquake among the merchants was very calm in the court, because it was not a big deal for them to receive the envoys from England or to let the merchants join the negotiations. The West was too far away, and the courtiers did not pay much attention to it. Their attention is now on the credentials of Dajin and Xixia. The 2 countries have requested to open up more discussions, and the total number of them listed in the credentials has reached 27. Now, there are only 13 disputes on the border of the 3 kingdoms in total, and 27 were added. Even Tang dynasty did not have this scale. Xixia will send envoys to come because of this, and the court and China have been arguing about it recently. Who can remember the English envoys who are about to arrive in the capital? At this time, the emperor's attention was on the fact that the royal family was about to have a new baby, and he happily said to the queen, "Haoran hopes that this child has been looking forward to it for many years, so you can send them more things." The clothes are sent to Aling. Isn't there a custom of putting boys' clothes under the pillow to give birth to a boy? Haoran and Aling are looking forward to the girl, so they put the girl's clothes under the pillow. Li Jinghua agreed with a smile, and took Wen Kui to rummage through the boxes to find many small clothes from before Mingzhu, packed them and sent them to Mu Yangling. Qi Ziyuan opened the inner library and gave a lot of things. The imperial palace has always been the place that attracts the most attention. Even if Qi Ziyuan didn't issue an edict, the imperial palace pulled out 3 or 4 carts of things and sent them to Guangzhou at this time, which still attracted everyone's attention. As a result, the noisy courtiers realized that the emperor's attention seemed wrong. After inquiring, everyone knew that Princess Rongjun was pregnant. Therefore, Mu Yangling became known to the world once she was pregnant, and it was not much worse than when the queen was pregnant with the Pearl Princess. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1034. When Mu Yangling's belly grew bigger, Imperial physician Wang and several famous doctors in Guangzhou jointly confirmed that she was still pregnant with twins this time. Qi Haoran became tense like never before. He was worried that Mu Yangling would have another difficult childbirth, and at the same time, he was worried that there were 2 boys. They were busy praying to various gods and Buddhas every day. They wanted Mu Yangling to be safe and have a daughter. He was too busy up. Qi Haoran firmly said to Mu Yangling, "This time it must be a son and a daughter." "Really, you see that you have been pressing clothes under your pillow. If you can believe this, wouldn't everyone have a son if they want a son, and a daughter if they want a daughter?" Since the queen sent the clothes of Princess Pearl, Chi also found out the clothes of the tiger head and the little lion and folded them, putting 3 sets of clothes under the pillow every night. In his words, it is good if one daughter hurts, and more sons can protect the daughter. Aling gave birth to 1 in the first child, 2 in the second child, and maybe 3 in the third child. Chi even assigned genders, 1 daughter and 2 sons. They folded the little clothes under the pillow properly. As soon as Dr. Wan confirmed that Mu Yangling was pregnant with twins, he immediately said seriously that this time it must be a son and a daughter. Xiaoxiang and the others believed in their father's words very much. They would greet the younger siblings in her stomach every morning with breakfast. The children even bought toys and planned to give them to the younger siblings when they were born. Boys' toys are easy to find, and their younger brothers will like them too, but what will their younger sisters like? The little bears can only ask Xiaobao, who has a younger sister. Xiaobao explained that Zhu likes pearls. He either wears pearl flowers on his hair or strings pearls on his clothes. The children were delighted to hear that. We don't have many other things, but we have the most pearls. Xiaoan counted with her fingers. There are still 5 days until the good day we choose, and we will have a lot of pearls by then. Sea oysters have a limited lifespan, and autumn is always the peak season for pearl fishing. This time, the children chose the 3rd day of August, which is a good day for traveling, getting married, and opening a business. So they chose to open the internet on this day. Because it was the day to test whether the pearl cultivation method was successful, not only a few children, but everyone who paid attention to it secretly paid attention. Mu Yangling was also very concerned, and went to the beach with a big belly to watch people salvage the sea mussels they raised. Each of the 5 children picked a clam and dragged it up. Seeing this, Xiaofu hurried over, pointed at the clam in the net and shouted "Ah!" Xiao asked him to order one as well and drag it up, so, starting from Xiaoxiang, they took a sharp stick to pry the sea oyster. When the rows of small pearls in the oyster meat appeared in everyone's sight, everyone couldn't help cheering. Little Bear held one up and looked at the sun. It was shiny and smooth, and round, not bad compared to the one salvaged from the sea. The pearls in this clam are very small, only a little bigger than the mung bean, but it has more pearls. The total number of pearls on both sides is 17 or 18. The tiger head looked left and right, and couldn't help prying the one he had chosen. Xiao couldn't help but screamed when he saw the pearl in the clam. Although there is only one clam, it is worth far more than the clam opened by Little Bear. Mu Yangling couldn't help but look forward to the sea mussels of other children. Xiaoan simply asked everyone to open the sea mussels. In the end, Hutu and Xiaofu were the luckiest. The pearls they produced were big and round with few blemishes, followed by Little Lion and Xiaoan. Wensu and Xiaoxiang had the worst luck. Enough pearls came out, and the 2 children were very happy. Mu Yangling soaked the pearls they opened in water. The pearls had to be polished before they could be put on the market, but this was the first oyster opened by the children, and Mu Yangling planned to keep it as a souvenir. Xiao looked at the whole sea field, and thought of the number of sea mussels. She couldn't help being excited. How many pearls can this produce? Mu Yangling said with a smile, as long as the pearling rate reaches 20%, they won't lose money. All the costs and energy invested in the past few years have been paid off. Looking at the children cheering on the beach, Xiao sighed, I didn't expect them to be richer than us. How old are the children? They will make money. Although Xiao, who was a small businessman in the past, was relieved, he would not be so shocked. Now it is a pearl oyster in the sea. With the opening of the sea ban in recent years, pearl jewelry has become more and more popular, and the price has become more and more expensive. I don't know how much the pearls in the sea market can sell for. In addition, they have the technology in their hands. The children have a permanent income. Even if the price of pearls drops in the future, they will not lose money. Xioxia saw some merchants who came to watch and surrounded a few children. worried that they would be deceived, so she wanted to go forward, but Mu Yangling hurriedly stopped her. Let them go by themselves, this is their business, not to mention, in this city of Guangzhou, who dares to cheat our children? Xiao Xia thought so, and let them go. A few children are really not easy to trick, they are smart. There is shrewd Zioan, stingy little bear, and clever and cautious little lion Hutu and Chi Wensu. The merchants who surrounded them took a lot of effort to hold down some prices. Mu Yangling saw that they were going to open oysters to get pearls, so he didn't stay to make trouble for them. Instead, he left Xiaoting and went home holding his stomach. She is now nearly 6 months pregnant, and she feels tired after standing for a long time. Because they planted one by one, and the time was long enough, the beating rate reached 60%, and the children made a fortune. They sold some on the spot, and soaked the rest in the water, planning to take them back and hand them over. Sell it after polishing it in the shop at home, so the price will be higher. The incident on the sea field soon spread to the city, and everyone knew that several young masters of the palace had grown pearls. It's really weird. This pearl can also be raised. You said that those pearl divers have been picking pearls for hundreds of years. Why didn't they think of raising pearls? Who said he never thought about it? I heard that there were people in Hepu, Guangxi who raised them, but they didn't raise them, and they went bankrupt. It's the first time raising these young masters. How did they grow up? Why don't you say that he is the descendant of the dragon and the grandson of the phoenix? If the prince and grandson roar, how dare those beasts in the sea disobey orders? The topic got more and more biased. Everyone thought that this pearl could only be raised by the sons and daughters of the dragon and the phoenix, but some shrewd people thought too much. I don't know if I can get the technology of raising pearls. If not, I have to cooperate with the Wangfu, and it is best to win the pearl distribution business. This matter only took half a day, and there was a lot of trouble in the Guangzhou mansion. Even Fan Zijin heard about it in the government office. He immediately asked Yanmo to go to the beach, let them soak the pearls first, and don't sell them out. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1035. The unearthed pearls were carried back to the palace, and separated according to the upper, middle, and lower grades. Fan Zijin looked at the few top-grade large pearls in Xiao Mutong and was very satisfied. He said to several children, how about selling these pearls to me? Little Xiang agreed without even thinking about it. Xiaoan hurriedly pulled his sleeve secretly, and little Xiang immediately shut his mouth tightly. Fan Zijin noticed his son's little move, and looked at him with raised eyebrows. Xiaoan raised his head as if there was no such thing and said, Daddy, we need to keep some as a signboard. Fan Zijin said calmly, if you sell it to me, you can also make a signboard. At the worst, I'll let someone hold the beads and walk around the city of Guangzhou with great fanfare to promote it for you. Then let's choose some to be the treasure of the town store, and sell the rest to you, shall we? Fan Zijin looked at his son firmly, and asked, are you still going to open a shop? Xiaoan coughed lightly, nodded and said, open a store that specializes in selling pearls. You can't just sell mussels after opening them on the beach. That's too cheap. Put the polished pearls in the store. Buying alone or wholesale, the price can go up a lot. Then the pearls are sold out, so the store is empty. The breeding period of the sea farm is about 3 years, that is to say, pearls only come once every 3 years. In the year when the mussels are opened, they can be sold. What about the remaining 2 years? Fan Zijin felt that the child was still too tender. Zioan said proudly, we just agreed that we will contract 3 more sea sites, and try the cycle of 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and 5 years, so that we can do experiments and extend the development period. After 2 years of separation, there will be sea mussels to open every year. Fan Zijan opened his mouth, then closed it, and asked after a while, have you considered the cost? Xiao Xiong waved his hand very grandly, don't worry, uncle, the cost is not too much. Huda shouted richly, we are not short of money now. Even the thrifty little bears nodded with a smile. They are not short of money now, they can spend and use whatever they want. Fan Zijan was choked, and Chi Heiran said to him, you just choose the best ones, why do you have to wrap them round, you have to let them have something to spread their reputation. Fan Zijan, I want to open a silver house. Chi Heiran said to him earnestly, Zijan, you are not short of money now, you should focus on state affairs, how can you always think about business matters? Now salt, iron, wood, silk, tea, porcelain, restaurants, and tea houses, grocery store, which one are you not involved in? Now you still want to open a silver house, will you open a bank the next day? Hey, you're right. Fan Zijan cast a glance at him and said, Master really plans to open a bank. Chi Heiran opened his mouth wide, and said for a moment, welcome to contribute to Daki's national treasury. Big Brother is resetting the business tax. No matter whose post you use, you have to pay tax. With so many properties under your name, you have to pay a lot of taxes. Fan Zijan also felt heartbroken. Since he started his business, he really hasn't paid any taxes. Daki is the same as Dazhu. Officials are not allowed to operate business. However, these are just legal regulations. Who obeys them? It's like the land property under the name of a juran can be exempted from taxation. Once the exam is passed, most people will go to the juran with the land deed to record the land in the other party's name in order to evade taxes, and give some offerings to the juran every year, which is counted as a transaction between the two parties. The same is true for business. Most officials record their family business in the name of their servants, and then take their name cards to the yamen for filing. Every year, the tax yamen bypasses these shops. However, those with titles are not included in this prohibition, so Chi Heiran and Fan Zijan's business is under his own name, but before Daki, Fan Zijan used Chi Ziyuan's famous post to do business, so he said he never paid taxes. After Chi Ziyuan came to power, he first abolished the ordinance on tax exemption for juran and above, making it clear that one person can only be exempted from a fixed number of acres of land, and even officials who enter the court as officials have a limited number of land taxes that can be exempted for each rank, although the higher the rank, the more exempted they are. Much, but still far worse than the previous full exemption. First-rank officials can only exempt 500 mu of land, and all land beyond 500 mu must pay taxes. Chi Heiran is a super-grade title, but there is only an exemption standard of 800 mu, and he has been paying taxes honestly these years. It can be said that the emperor's move has increased a lot of food taxes for the treasury. After all, most of the land is in the hands of these officials. And now, the emperor is going to start with the private business of the officials again. Although Fan Zijan felt distressed, he had to accept it. If he sang against it, it would be even more impossible for this decree to be implemented. At this time, there were indeed many people in the DPRK who hoped that Fan Zijan would jump out to oppose it, and some even directly challenged Fan Zijan's stewards to directly resist the tax. Fortunately, the person who was selected by Fan Zijan to be in charge was not stupid, and there was no trouble at this time. Chi Ziyuan's methods are as tough as ever. First, he ordered that slaves who do business and buy land will be taxed by 20% more. He also issued an edict that all officials who condone tax evasion in the shops under their jurisdiction will be punished for the crime of greed. Beheading directly cut off the way for those officials not to pay taxes from the root. Whoever is an official doesn't have a few shops. Everyone just thought that the emperor was so ruthless, so someone aimed at King Rong's shop, thinking that he should find a way to make King Rong and the emperor quarrel. The emperor loves King Rong so much, let's see how he will collect this tax at that time. Under the influence of others, this matter can only be broken. Therefore, when Chi Heiran felt sorry for Fan Zijian's silver, some officials came to his shop and demanded to pay taxes. The matter was reported to Chi Heiran first. His face was distorted for a while, and he slapped the thing on the table with hatred. Use me as a raft, it's easy to bully me, right? As long as the decree is implemented, he will not refuse to pay taxes even if he is cheering for his elder brother. But now that the decree has just been issued and the Ministry of Household Affairs has not yet started to act, someone has come to him. Chi Heiran knew that they were sowing dissension, and the purpose was to make him and his eldest brother quarrel. He knew that he could not please them, but if he did, he couldn't bear it. If he didn't pay, it would ruin his eldest brother's plan and hold Chi Heiran back. Chu got a mouthful of blood. Chi Heiran sat in the yamen with a livid face for a long time, then took a deep breath, and said to Fei Bai, "Let Zhu Liang prepare the money, we will pay as much as the taxes that should be paid." The second person to know the news was Fan Zijian. Because Mu Yangling was pregnant, Chi Heiran directly ordered Zhu Liang not to tire Mu Yangling with outside affairs, whether it was business matters or farm affairs. Therefore, Chi Heiran was the first to receive the news, and most of the managers in Mu Yangling's shop came from Fan Zijian, so he was the second to know. His reaction was completely different from Chi Heiran's. He sneered and said mockingly, "I'll just watch them shoot their own feet with stones." The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1036. Fan Zijian went to the Qi mansion to watch with the mentality of watching a good show, to see how Mu Yangling went crazy. When Chi Heiran returned home, the first thing he did was to rub his cheeks, try his best to smile, and happily enter the door to have dinner with his family. Seeing that Fan Zijian was there, he gave him a surprised look. Usually he invited Zijian over for dinner, but Zijian always said that he couldn't eat when he saw him, so he took his son home to eat. Why did he come here today? Then it occurred to him that he might have known about the shop and came to help him out. Chi Heiran was moved and anxious at the same time, afraid that Mu Yangling would be angry and worried if he said it regardless of the occasion, so he gave him winks behind Mu Yangling's back. Fan Zijian and Chi Heiran have known each other for more than 20 years. In terms of tacit understanding, they rank second, and no one dared to rank first. However, now Fan Zijian said that he couldn't understand Chi Heiran's eyes, and his eyes almost cramped when he saw him. She tilted her head slightly and looked at him suspiciously, indicating that if there is something urgent, you can go outside and say, who knows what you want to say when you blink your eyes. Seeing that he turned his head towards Mu Yangling, Chi Heiran understood that he couldn't let Aling know. Chi Heiran was almost moved to tears. As expected of a good brother who grew up together, he just understood him. Chi Heiran nodded slightly to show that he was right, then looked at Mu Yangling with a smile, and began to ask for warmth. Mu Yangling looked at him, then at Fan Zijian, and forgive her for not understanding the eyebrow eye lawsuit for a long time. After Mu Yangling was pregnant, she had a big heart, and if she couldn't figure it out, she stopped thinking about it. She said, "Go wash your hands first, we can eat in a while." Chi Heiran was reluctant to leave, so he sat next to Mu Yangling and instructed a few children to bring him water, euphemistically saying, "Look at the children's filial piety." Seeing Chi Heiran winking and sitting down, Fan Zijian felt that the matter was not important, so he stopped asking and picked up the teacup to drink tea. Seeing Chi Heiran instructing a few children to work, he sneered, "Why do you keep servants at home? Do you need to instruct the children?" Chi Heiran felt that Fan Zijian was jealous of him, shook his head and said, "This is the filial piety of children, you can't enjoy it if you want to enjoy it." Xiaoan immediately said, "Father, when we get home, my brother and I will also bring you water and tea. We will also be filial to you." Fan Zijian glanced at Chi Heiran complacently, patted Xiaoan's head and praised, My good son, we have servants in our family now, we don't need you, and we will use you in the future. Mu Yangling rolled his eyes at the two of them, thinking that they were so naive. So you gathered here tonight to show off your son? Fan Zijin turned his head and said, of course I'm here for business. What are you going to do about the shop? Since someone bumps into you without a good eye, you should hit back fiercely. If it hurts, you can slap your face. Otherwise, can I help you? Fan Zijin was still very interested in this kind of thing. Zijin, Chi Heiran called him anxiously, what's going on? Didn't he say he would not tell Aling? Fan Zijin misunderstood, and said in surprise and disapproval, when did you become so weak and let them bully you like this? Bullying what? Mu Yangling was confused, seeing Chi Heiran's anxious look, he said angrily, someone bullied our master. Fan Zijin looked at her in surprise, you don't know, then he looked at Chi Heiran, aren't you in charge of everything in the shop? Our master has deprived me of my rights recently, so let me stop. Mu Yangling turned to look at Chi Heiran, and asked, what happened in the shop? Don't try to hide it from me. If you don't tell me, I'll ask Zhu Liang, at worst, I'll go to the shop and ask. Chi Heiran was sweating profusely and said, isn't this the big brother who wants to redefine the business tax? It means that the business of officials and eunuchs has to pay taxes, so some officials came to our door and asked us to pay taxes. In fact, this is justifiable. The business has to pay taxes. I have asked Zhu Liang to start preparing the money, we will be fine after paying it, don't worry about getting angry. Mu Yangling's eyes widened. Fan Zijin spit out a mouthful of tea and asked, what do you think you want to do? Ask Zhu Liang to prepare money to pay taxes. Chi Heiran nodded righteously, and was about to persuade Aling not to be angry, when Mu Yangling slapped the table and said angrily, what tax do you pay? When did our shop, Grange, not pay taxes? They even came to the door. Come on, even if the business tax is rescheduled, it will not be paid until the end of the year, and it is only August now, what kind of tax do you pay? Fan Zijin had already wiped his clothes, and he looked at Chi Heiran contemptuously, how much do you know about the family business? He turned his head and said to Mu Yangling, you have to be careful about this, in short, you can't be bullied. Your family is not like mine, but you have been paying taxes all the time. Chi Heiran was stunned for a moment, then jumped up angrily, master pays taxes. Both Fan Zijin and Mu Yangling stared at him, what do you think? Then they still come to find a shop to collect taxes. They are so bold. The master is easy to bully, isn't he? Chi Heiran took a deep breath and asked Mu Yangling, since when did our family start paying taxes? Our family has been paying taxes since we started our business. Mu Yangling stared, am I the kind of person who evades taxes? Chi Heiran became more confident now, I have been paying taxes all the time, they haven't even paid for a year, dare to ask me to pay taxes, I told them to pay taxes. After paying for a few years, they have to pay for a few years. Fan Zijin, who wanted to put Chi Heiran aside, had bright eyes and said, this is a good idea, I support it. Mu Yangling poured cold water on him and said, then what if they also let Zijin pay the tax? Chi Heiran shut up, Fan Zijin has quite a lot of property, if he pays taxes, let alone going bankrupt, the amount must be quite large, and Zijin has only accumulated a little property in the past 2 years. So their shortboard is Fan Zijin. Fan Zijin gritted his teeth, said, I'll pay it, and said, I'll ask the emperor to return it to me later. Mu Yangling stared, the money is in the treasury, how can I get it back to you? Fan Zijin said, it depends on human effort. Mu Yangling shook his head, let's forget it. It's another storm when we find out. Why don't we just shout, and it's almost enough to make up for a year or two. Chi Heiran rolled his eyes and asked Fan Zijin, I remember that property under the name of the royal family is not taxed, right? The two looked at each other and smiled, and decided to discuss it in detail later. Chi Heiran said to Mu Yangling, "Leave this matter alone, take a good rest, I will ask Zijin to come and give me advice, don't worry, we will definitely not suffer." But at this time, as soon as Fei Bai, who had just blocked Zhu Liang, said the prince's order, Zhu Liang, who was opposite him, widened his eyes and said, "Pay taxes? We have always paid taxes, and it's not yet the end of the year." And in the capital, a small official also stared wide-eyed, "Let the shops of the palace pay taxes? But they have been paying taxes all the time. Who came up with such a bad idea?" The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1037. Because he was in charge of taxation, he noticed the emperor's decree as soon as it came out. A few days ago, he lamented how big this incident was. When did the officials and lords in the court pay commercial taxes? So when his colleagues said that some officials went to the palace to collect taxes in person, he knew what their plan was. It was nothing more than trying to make King Rong resist the tax and then confront the emperor. But the key is that people have been paying taxes. The little official sighed, who doesn't know that King Rong has a bad temper, and it's useless even if he is the king of heaven. You don't avoid people, why do you still go up to them? Isn't this looking for abuse? The colleague turned pale with shock. You said the palace pays taxes. The little official nodded heavily. Speaking of which, he discovered this incident by accident. At that time, he told his colleagues that it was a strange thing. The king of Zanrong County is dedicated to the public. After all, who will pay taxes when he becomes an official and does business? But every year when the account is recorded, the properties of Rongjun Wangfu pay taxes honestly. He also wondered if they did business in the name of the Wangfu, but seeing that Fengshao grain shop also pays taxes every year, he can only use this. After all, Rongjun Wangfu is a good citizen who abides by the law. Seeing that Shangfeng didn't respond much after the account book was handed in, he didn't give a special reminder, but now it seems that the tax urging has come to the palace, and the people above obviously don't know about it, at least those who went to the palace to urge taxes must not know. At this time, the minister of the household department and several servants were staring at the account book with livid faces. The property of the Wangfu has been paying taxes, why didn't Wang Zhen report it? No, who urged Lu Yu to go to the Wangfu to collect taxes? Even if Chi Heiran didn't pay the tax, if he dared to push him to confront the emperor, wouldn't that be courting death? Just when the emperor and Rongjun King are stupid. The left servant of the household department took a deep breath, and said, "Several nobles have shot, and several civil servants of the 4th and 5th ranks in the court have contacted Lu Yu, and someone took the opportunity to transfer Wang Zhen away. He just left." Lu Yu then took people to the palace to collect taxes. Hubu Shangshu sneered, he thinks that this move will please the adults in the court, so even if he is angered by King Rongjun, there will be a way out. It's just a daydream. Then he supported his forehead with a headache again, the emperor is too anxious. The minister of the household department also belongs to the group of people who do not pay taxes, but it does not mean that he does not support this decree. Most of the wealth is in the hands of the upper class, but most of the treasury money is taken from the middle and lower class people. Although he also feels sorry for the money handed over, he knows that the emperor's move is beneficial to the country and the people. But he felt that the reform should be carried out step by step. Now Daki has stabilized and is no longer as chaotic as it was when the country was first founded. Will cause a backlash. The knotted places should be straightened out one by one. Such haste is not beneficial to the country. My lord, Mr. Zhuoxiang invites you to see him. Well, although this person is smiling all day long, his methods are also vicious. As soon as he got the news, this person came to his door. Hubu Shangshu can only go to see Zhuoxiang. The first time Rong Xian saw him, he said, "Since the knife is down, let's make a quick decision." Hesitating is a bad thing. Fortunately, they are stupid enough to find King wrong by mistake. You also know your temper, this matter must not be good, you and the people in the household department should prepare, not only will the commercial tax be reset this time, but I am afraid that the tax owed will also be pursued. Master Zhuoxiang, the envoys of Dajin and Zixia are still waiting in the capital, and the matter of negotiating the market has not yet been negotiated. This will increase the burden of negotiating business taxes and recovering tax arrears. The officials of the household department can't do it even if they have superpowers. Rongxian nodded with a smile, I know, that's why I sent you a helper. The subordinate officials transferred from all over the country will soon arrive in Beijing. Moreover, the emperor decided to add ink, and then the people will be close to your household department. Twice a year. If it doesn't work in 1 year, it will always go well in 3 or 4 years. The minister of the household department knew that as soon as the matter of recovering tax arrears happened, he became the target of public criticism. Little did he know, someone would soon share the pressure for him and divert everyone's hatred. Knowing that doing business requires paying taxes, the children excitedly found out their account books for Mu Yangling to calculate. Mom, can you see how much tax we have to pay? After the tax urging incident happened, Mu Yangling seriously stated that she was a good citizen who paid taxes according to the law. She almost blushed and asked Chi Heiran, am I the kind of person who evades taxes? Chi Heiran shook his head again and again, he just felt that his wife was too law-abiding, and even started to pay taxes in the Great Zhou dynasty, and he didn't know how much cheaper it would be for Emperor Jinjian. It's not that Mu Yangling doesn't know that dignitaries and officials don't have to pay taxes, but she can't get over the hurdle in her heart. Although business taxes are a little heavier in this era, she still has to abide by the law. It was only then that Mu Yangling discovered that she had taught the children to respect the old, love the young, and abide by the law, but she didn't seem to teach them to pay taxes. All the children had money-making businesses in their hands. So, she called the children and told them about the importance of taxes and our obligation to pay taxes according to the law, and then asked, do the math, how much tax did you steal? The children were taken aback for a moment, they immediately divided up the money they made, so they didn't even think about paying taxes, so Xiaoxiang asked, are there any discounts for children? Mu Yangling tilted his head and said, no, according to Daki's tax law. Xiaoan began to calculate how much money they had to spend from their pockets, while Tigerhead and Little Lion said excitedly, Mother, after paying taxes, we are also adults. After all, we have all contributed to the country's construction. Mu Yangling nodded reluctantly, if you don't make mistakes, then I can barely count you as adults. Hudu said seriously to Little Bear, brother, we have to pay taxes. The Little Lion continued, we must set an example. Xiaoan threw the ledger aside and came up with an idea, elder brother is so reluctant to pay taxes, so others must also be reluctant. Why don't we help Uncle Huang persuade those people to pay taxes honestly? Both the Tigerhead and the Little Lion felt good, so Xiaoan pulled Qi Wensu to the front and said, you are the second prince, so you should be our representative, so that they can know that this is the attitude of the royal family. Little Bear declared solemnly, I don't want to pay taxes. The 4 children ignored him and got together to discuss how to persuade everyone to pay the business tax. Little Xiong continued, I just want to know if there is any discount for children, because there is a discount for children on the population tax, and they only need to pay half of the tax. The 4 children continued to ignore him, and had initially finalized the principle of leading by example first, then reasoning, and not resorting to violence. Mu Yangling was also full of anger because of the previous incident. Hearing this, he rolled his eyes and gave advice to the 4 children. Little Xiong is already 8 or 9 years old, he is considered an older child, he is not easy to show up, but the 4 children are young, they will be tolerated for anything they do, but what they do is very correct, obviously they can guide the direction of the wind. Coupled with Chihayron's thunderous move, it's hard to believe that he can't beat those people. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1038. Just when Chihayron impeached Lu Yu for repeatedly forcing taxes and forcing taxpayers to make up for the shortfall of those who have not paid taxes, Xiao Xiang and the others have already calculated the amount of tax they should pay, and the children also behaved, and tied the money in the small big red flowers were also tied to the cart, and the little lion and the tiger head pushed it to the government office one by one. What they paid this time was last year's tax. As for this year's tax, they won't pay until the end of the year, and then it will be the new business tax for reference. After the rescheduling of the business tax, the scope of taxation has been expanded, and even officials have to pay tax, but in fact the amount has been reduced a bit. It used to be 31 tax, but after the rescheduling, most of the business tax has been reduced to 35 tax 1. Some special products have increased taxes, but the things of a few children are obviously not among them, so they are happy to postpone this year's tax until the end of the year, which can save a lot of money. The 4 children wore big red flowers made by themselves and went to the government office, followed by a group of guards. The people of Guangzhou City have long been familiar with these 4 children, and they are not afraid when they see them. Tofu now, which is often patronized by the 4 children, the peddler at the stall also asked loudly, "What are the 4 young masters doing here? It looks like there is a big happy event." A few children have been waiting for this question for a long time. Xiaoan also plans to let the guards and uncles pretend to be ordinary people when no one asks after walking through the street. My imperial uncle said that all the benefits in the world belong to the people. Since they are taken from the people, they should be used for the people. The army, water conservancy, roads, schools, sacrifices, etc. all come from taxes. Business tax, our adult tax is paid by our parents, and there is no land tax for the time being, but for this commercial tax, our brothers usually make some gadgets to sell. I didn't know that children have to pay tax when they do business. Now I know, of course you have to hand it in. Everyone was stunned, and when they heard the word Uncle Huang from Xiaoan's mouth, they realized that the children were all descendants of the royal family, and it turned out that the royal family was so close to them. Everyone was stunned for a moment, and then Xiaoan's words imprinted in their hearts. Some people couldn't help applauding, thinking that what the emperor said was right, and the small vendor selling tofu now squeezed in and asked distressedly, "Fan Shizi, what about you? Do I have to pay taxes in the yamen for my business?" The children had done their homework before they came out, and they knew that the stall fees paid by businesses like hawkers are considered taxes, so Xiaoan educated them a bit, and casually pointed to the shops on the side of the road, saying, "Shops like this, you need to go to the yamen to file for the record and pay taxes." Everyone said oh, and Xiaoan continued, "Paying taxes is a big matter, and each of us should pay attention to it, so everyone will check after they go back to see if there is anyone in their family who forgot to pay taxes like us, and pay them quickly. If you know that someone hasn't paid, remind them to hand it in quickly. Otherwise, the construction of water conservancy and roads will be all tax money. If our family pays, but theirs didn't pay, then the water conservancy and roads will all be paid by our family. Money, it turned out that their family is also using it, thanks to us." Huda shouted loudly, "You should pay attention when you go back, and don't let the neighbors in the neighborhood take advantage of us by evading taxes." The little lion patted his head and said, "Brother Xiaoan didn't say that, why did you memorize it wrong?" Huda shook his head, and said indifferently, "Anyway, that's what it means, I can't let people take advantage of me." When the onlookers heard the 2 brothers' discussion, they all smiled kindly. Children of this age can fight for a piece of mud, let alone this kind of thing that takes advantage of money, and there are people who don't want to. Even they themselves are not happy, and then they really figured out in their hearts who around them didn't pay taxes. The second prince waved his little hand and shouted, "Okay, let's go quickly, otherwise the government office will be demolished." Many people wanted to watch the fun, so they followed a few children to the government office, and Xiaoan popularized it for them while walking. For example, their uncle Huang occasionally found that many shops did not pay taxes or paid less taxes, and most of the shops behind these shops were famous people and officials. When they got angry, they had to reset the business tax, and asked no matter who was behind it. Anyone who does business has to pay business tax. He also said, someone was not convinced and went to my fourth uncle's shop to make trouble, forcing my fourth uncle to pay taxes. They thought that my fourth uncle did not pay taxes like them. In fact, my fourth uncle should pay a lot of taxes every year. It's all over. When my fourth aunt got angry and talked about it at home, we realized that we had to pay taxes for doing business. When we thought about it, we also did business, so wouldn't we also have to pay taxes? Xiaoan said proudly. My fourth aunt said, now, no matter who it is, as long as the business reaches a certain scale, it has to pay taxes, and children are no exception, even if we have the prince's brother as a shareholder. So we calculated the taxes we should have paid last year and brought them to the government to pay the taxes. Many people praised, young masters are righteous. The four children became proud, and went to the government office with their heads held high. The government office has been waiting for a long time. There is no way, the incident is too big. They received the news before the four children arrived. This is simply pushing the Guangzhou government office to the forefront. If other children, they would have arrested. They got up and educated, but these four, one is the prince, two are the princes of the palace, and the other is also the son of the duke's mansion and the magistrate's family. Their backgrounds are too big, they can't do anything. It's not that they feel sorry for those business taxes. They are just small ants. Even if they have a few shops and do some business, they don't make much money. They pay them as soon as they are paid. They are still arguing, and they are asking for tax payment here. Isn't this jumping off a cliff looking for death? So they were very bitter in their hearts, but they still had to squeeze out a smile on their faces. The magistrate didn't stop him, so he obviously agreed. They still have to make a living under the hands of Master Fan. Offend King Rong and his immediate boss. There were also some people who were secretly unconvinced. The properties of the Rongjun prince's mansion were taxed, but that was because they didn't have much property. And Kuagong was different. He happily opened the two boxes on the small trolley, and when he handed over the white money inside to the government office for registration, someone in the crowd changed his voice and asked, Fan Shize, you want others to pay taxes, how about you, did your family pay taxes? Xiaoan straightened her chest and said, my family? My family didn't pay taxes. My father said that the treasury still owes our family a lot of money. Even in another 10 years, our family won't have to pay taxes. Everyone was in an uproar, and then they remembered that when the Qi dynasty was first established, the treasury was empty and people's livelihood was difficult. It was Fan Kuagong's hard work to pay for it. Therefore, the money owed by the treasury can indeed be offset by taxes. The person who asked the question was also taken aback. He didn't expect that there was such a layer, and Fan Zijin, who hurried over, was also taken aback. Yes, how could he forget this layer? The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1039. Fan Zijin didn't know about the children's actions. If he knew it, he would have stopped it long ago, because he was the first one to be targeted when things broke out. This matter can only be left to Qi Heiran. Like all the parents of children who did bad things, he was the last to get the news. As soon as he heard that the children were pulling money to pay taxes while spreading tax knowledge to everyone, he knew it was bad. These kids are not cheating others, they are cheating him. There are so many properties in his name, but he has not paid a penny. The key is that he is quite large, but in fact, the rest of the money is only the past 2 years. If he really pays taxes, he doesn't have much money left. Fan Zijin felt that there must be a planner behind the children, and Mu Yangling was obviously that person. Fan Zijin was walking this way, wishing to give Mu Yangling a hard time in his heart. Sometimes he is very smart and considerate of the overall situation, but sometimes he is very stupid, and he always misses something. You said you provoked the children to come out and make trouble. Why don't you think about me more? Just keep your family safe? It wasted all his heart for them, how much he cares about them. Chi Heiran doesn't even know that his shop has been paying taxes, but he knows that he is still complaining for them on the front foot, and you push me out to block the knife on the back foot. Did you do this to a friend? Fan Zijin ran forward very aggrieved. If it wasn't for his strong nature, he would have red eyes. But when he heard his son defending him, Fan Zijin really had red eyes. Luckily, Mu Yangling hasn't gotten home yet. Somehow left a way for him to survive. He knows how to transfer his taxes to the silver owed by the treasury. Fan Zijin breathed a sigh of relief, and walked out with a serious face, instructing Zhou Zhihu, who was in charge of the matter, to approve the accounts, collect the tax money, and issue entries. Xiaoan ran up in a jerk, and asked for credit. Daddy, did we make a good start? Fan Zijin nodded reluctantly. You are all good boys. Hudu said excitedly, it's not enough, second uncle, we'll come back tomorrow. What else are you doing here? Fan Zijin stared. The little lion explained, what we pay today is last year's tax, and the year before last. The second prince said happily, second uncle, don't worry, we are not tired at all. The other 3 children nodded happily, walking more will keep you healthy. Not to mention Fan Zijin, the officials here shook their hands and almost knelt down to the children. They were not afraid of the children being tired, but the troubles caused by it. They were all trembling when they just paid the tax for a year. Well, it will take another 2 years. This is forcing people to die. The people watching outside shouted hello and applauded the young masters one after another. Besides the officials, who would dare not pay the taxes owed to the yamen? Anyway, they are debt-free. The 4 children, who were in debt but also light, left happily after getting the receipt, and invited the onlookers to continue to witness their feat of paying taxes tomorrow. Brethren, how many people do you think will pay the tax money after we leave? Hudu asked curiously. Xiaoan said to himself, there must be a lot. If you don't believe me, just wait, we have taken a good lead. The little lion looked around, pointed to a restaurant not far away and said, let's go there and wait, and see how many people are so moved by us that they come to pay taxes on the first day. The children nodded, rushed into the restaurant and asked for a box by the window. The window was facing the government office, with a wide view, and there was absolutely no room to miss. The 4 children waited eagerly. Chi Wensu clasped his hands and wanted to order something delicious, and the tiger's head was drooling. Xiaoan and the little lion each held one, and taught, we still have to save money to pay taxes, but if you don't have money to buy delicious food, just drink the tea provided by the store for free, and buy it next time we pay the monthly money. The waiter who came in and waited for the order was startled. Is this planning to occupy a private room for nothing? But seeing the 2 younger young masters nodding their heads while looking at the menu eagerly, he couldn't help but feel a little soft-hearted, and after thinking about it, he went out and passed the original words to the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper pondered for a moment, and then said, pick up a few high-quality snacks and send them up, and say that they are delivered by our restaurant. Some young masters, Gao Yi, are admired by the owner of our restaurant, and a few small snacks are still available. How can you find such an opportunity to please a few young masters without revealing your whereabouts? Would you like to give them another table of food? Xiao suggested, looking at the face of the shopkeeper. After all, the young masters inside are of high status, and they are happy to offer them even if they eat and drink for free. The shopkeeper shook his head. That's too blatant, and it's not good. Just give a few snacks, and quietly pass on what the young masters just said. Their family's restaurant has been paying taxes honestly, and is not in the ranks of paying taxes. He is still very happy to help the young masters. Xiaoan and the others were really happy to get the gift. Hu Tiou even ate the dim sum with sparkling eyes and promised Xiao that when they got rich, they would definitely come to this restaurant for a big meal. The second brother smiled and agreed. The four children stayed in the box excitedly and stared at the movement on the opposite side, but no one came to pay the tax until the sun went down. Qi Wensu was a little sleepy, pouted and said aggrievedly, "Brother Hutu, why hasn't anyone come yet? Look, everyone is down." The tiger tilted his head. Could it be that there is too much money, and they can't carry it for a while? The little lion had a flash of inspiration and said, "It must be that they owe too much silver, and they couldn't get it all together." Xiaoan added, "It's also possible that the accounting is too time-consuming and cannot be completed today." The corner of Fan Zijian's mouth twitched as he was about to push the door in. He felt that the children were too optimistic. Fan Zijian pushed the door open and went in, and said to the four Rushuan beating eggplants, "Let's go, my carriage is below, I'll take you home." Seeing that they were still powerless, he added slowly, "I sent a message to my family in the afternoon, saying that I am in a good mood today, and I plan to have dinner with the two families." Seeing that the four children still drooped their heads and did not listen carefully, then he continued to smile and said, "I ordered a few dishes: braised lion's head in braised sauce, sweet and sour pork ribs, sweet and sour carp. Oh, and Buddha jumps over the wall, but this dish is too big, I don't know if the chefs have made it." The four children rushed out with an awe. Fan Zijian stretched out his hand and grabbed his son's back collar, ignoring the third child who had already run out of the restaurant and climbed into the carriage, and asked his son with a smile, "Who gave you the money to go to the government office? Bad idea for giving tax money." The word "it's me" was swallowed by Xiaoan before it came out, and he looked back at his father innocently. Fan Zijian guessed it. He ground his teeth, couldn't help but knocked him on the head, and said, "Can't you come up with some reliable ideas? You have to make such a big fuss. He is the magistrate of Guangdong, and if something happens, he has to take care of it first. Why does your son think he is too free to find a job for him? The reborn wife is farming." Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1040. Fan Zijian took the four children home and said to Mu Yangling disapprovingly, "Why didn't you stop them?" Hutu stabbed Mu Yangling. "Mother supported us very much and said we are good boys." The second prince nodded fiercely, and said with a knife, "Fourth aunt also asked us to find the accountant to settle the accounts, so that we can sort out the tax payable so quickly." Fan Zijian stared at Mu Yangling. Mu Yangling smiled approvingly at the children, and said to Fan Zijian, "They didn't do anything wrong, not to mention it was to cooperate with Heiran's actions. Even a few young children know that they have to pay taxes. How big are their faces? Do not pay." Fan Zijian pointed at himself with a sullen face and said, "Unfortunately, there is a man with a big face here." Qi Heiran hurriedly stopped Mu Yangling behind him, and smiled flatteringly at Fan Zijian, "Cousin, can you be the same as them? Dare to speak." Fan Zijian looked at him contemptuously. "Yesterday, who suggested that I put the business under the name of the royal family to avoid commercial tax, and it's getting worse. Don't say you thought about it yesterday." "I thought about it." Mu Yangling hurriedly raised his hand and said, "It's because I thought about it, and I made sure that you are not involved in this matter, that I let the children go out to make trouble. Zijian, I didn't mean to drag you into the water." Fan Zijian snorted coldly, "Since you thought of this, why didn't you tell me?" Bai made him feel guilty for so many days. Chi Heiran hurriedly spoke for Mu Yangling, you don't know, she has always been forgetful since she was pregnant. Once she woke up and asked me if she had lunch. She even forgot whether she had lunch or not. Oh, it shows how forgetful you are. These are all pregnant, and when those two little things are born, I will beat you up to vent my anger. Fan Zijin was amused by Chi Heiran. It was the fault of the two unborn children who co-authored this matter, and he, as an uncle, even competed with the two children, right? Seeing that Fan Zijin's expression was not right, Mu Yangling quickly grabbed Chi Heiran and gave a few winks to the children. Seeing this, Xiao Xiang rushed up with his younger brothers to wrap around Fan Zijin, and kept asking, second uncle, do you mean that someone will be hurt later, are you moved to pay taxes? No, Fan Zijin was pissed off by Chi Heiran, and he didn't care about the feelings of the children, and said harshly, who would dare to do the stick in the early years? Don't say that you only have 1 year's tax subsidy, you just have to pay it for 10 years. Yes, as long as the officials in the court don't let go, it will be useless. Xiaoan was stunned, shocked but aggrieved, we have set an example for them. Fan Zijin felt that his son was being led stupidly by Mu Yangling, and he had never seen it so naive before. He said to his son, who would stand up for a model when it comes to self-interest? You think you are a role model, and people don't know how to hate you and you. Xiaoan's eye circles were red, and she looked at her father incredulously with tears in her eyes. The three tiger heads were also shocked, looking at their mother in disbelief, full of accusations. Fan Zijin felt slightly regretful when he saw the appearance of the four children. Was his tone too strong? Chi Heiran glared at him when he saw it. Zijin, how can you teach children like this? He turned to the four children and said, don't worry, someone will pay taxes tomorrow, if not tomorrow, there will definitely be some later. At worst, he will come to the door in person, and the escort will also escort someone. Fan Zijin hesitated for a moment when he heard the words, and was thinking about whether he wanted to suppress others tomorrow and force his subordinates to pay taxes. Mu Yangling pushed Chi Heiran away, you don't teach children like this. Mu Yangling pulled the children over and said, isn't it because no one is going to pay the tax? Why are you crying? Let me ask you, did you pay the wrong tax? The children shook their heads. Then did you make a mistake by setting an example for the world? The child shook his head again. Then do you regret what you did today? The children shook their heads, no regrets. In this case, why are you crying? Mu Yangling said, you didn't do anything wrong, it was them who were wrong, because they did something wrong, you cry, you are sad, isn't this punishing yourself with other people's mistakes? What a waste of money. But fourth aunt, what should we do if we are still a little sad? How can they not obey the law? Ask my father to arrest them, said the little lion, they are bad people. Hutu and the second prince looked at Chi Heiran full of hope. Chi Heiran's tongue was bitter, and if he really wanted to arrest someone, the conflict intensified. Little Xiang studied with Xiaobao for half a year and learned a little more. He tilted his head and looked at his mother, can't you catch it? Mu Yangling nodded, at least not at this stage. The four children suddenly became at a loss, what should they do? Little Xiang's whole face was wrinkled, then how do the yamen usually deal with those shops that don't pay taxes? How else can I deal with it? Those who are less powerful will go to the door to search directly, calculate the tax and money, and bring them back to the yamen together with fines, while those who are more powerful will first show courtesy and then serve. But obviously we can't talk about the first method, so Fan Zijin said, let's understand it first and persuade it with emotion, and then do it if it doesn't work. Xiao Xiang clapped his hands and said, this is easy to handle, Xiaoan, you and the second brother will be envoys to persuade them, if you can't persuade them, let the third brother and second cousin do it. Chi Heiran couldn't help slapping him, then what are you doing? Little Xiang said innocently, I'm already an older child, so I can't do anything, otherwise we would be unreasonable, but my brothers are still young, and they don't take it seriously, so it's not considered a bad thing. Co-author, you also know that you can't do it well, so let your brothers go. Heron glared at him. Little Bear couldn't help hiding behind his mother and smiling at his father. The 4 children were already considering the feasibility, so Mu Yangling hurriedly stopped them. You are not the government, you can try your best to persuade them, but you can't do it? Si Xiao asked, what if I can't be persuaded? How many methods of persuasion do you know? Is there any way to persuade? Huda shouted impatiently, go to the door directly and ask them to pay taxes, and tell them that if they don't pay taxes, it will be illegal. Be careful we copy them, the little lion shouted. This is the worst way, Mu Yangling said to lure them. You have to think again, wait until you think of a good way before going out to do this, if not, just hold back. Qi Wensu hurriedly turned his head to look at the tiger head, and the tiger head immediately went to look at the little lion. The little lion and Xiaoan looked at each other, discussed it together, and reluctantly agreed to his mother's request, saying, tomorrow we have to pay taxes. I promised everyone, they will come to see us tomorrow. Okay, you go. Mu Yangling was very generous, and didn't have any psychological pressure on her son being watched. The 4th child looked at Mu Yangling pitifully, but we have no money. Mu Yangling opened his mouth wide, didn't you just sell the pearls and get a share of the music box? How come you have no money? We gave all the money to Brother Prince and Brother Xiao Xiang. They used our money to invest in Haimao with Master Zhou, so all the money was spent. Mu Yangling immediately said, you can borrow money from your second uncle, he has money. The 4th child immediately looked at Fan Zijian, staring at him eagerly. Fan Zijian held his breath in his chest, feeling that the meal tonight was too suffocating. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1041. The 4 children borrowed money from Fan Zijian and continued to send them to the government office to pay taxes. What they paid was the taxes from the year before last. Their business had just started the year before, and they really didn't have much money. A small board in Huda could finish the job. In the small box was the silver that had just been taken from the accountant of Fan's mansion, and the 4 children went to the mansion's office in high spirits, and the people along the way kept applauding them. But their excitement lasted until noon today, because no one responded to their call after they paid their taxes. Fan Zijian has been calling people's attention to them. Seeing them drooping their heads into the restaurant, although he felt distressed, he didn't make up their minds for them, let alone make a move. Now the court has already started a fight over Lu Yu's forcing tax and resetting the business tax. Heron's heart was too big, and he dragged several nobles and second-rank officials into the water at once, and many of them were brothers who followed them through life and death. So at this time, can a few children not make trouble or don't make trouble? According to the informant, in the middle of the afternoon, the 4 young masters came out of the restaurant again with their heads held high and their chests upright. Later, seeing that they just went home and went out to play with the children the next day, they were relieved. The children finally left this matter behind. Yan Mo saw that the Duke of the country was busy with both state affairs and tax credits with the debt owed by the treasury, so he couldn't help saying, if you are worried, why don't you tell the princess and wife to pay more attention to the little princes, you can't always watch them. Fan Zijian snorted coldly, can your wife manage a few brats? Princess. It's good if she's not in there to give them advice. Now that they've returned to normal, let the others go back and only ask one person to keep an eye on them, as long as they are not making trouble on business and tax matters, don't worry about them. Research Inc. should be next. However, everything is not going well for him. Because on the 3rd day, Zhou's who came to work with a livid face, cupped his hands and said to Fan Zijan, "Your Majesty, I am grateful for the love of young Master Ling, but my family's son is not well off, and he is not feeling well recently, so he can no longer go out with young Master Ling and the young masters of the palace I played, please forgive me." Fan Zijan blinked, and his face slowly sank. Although Zhou who was worried, he looked at him with determination. Fan Zijan waved his hand and said, "I know about this matter." Zhou whose face twisted for a while, he turned around and left. Fan Zijan looked at Yanmo, and said calmly, "Go and see, what did those boys do?" While speaking, he accidentally broke the pen in his hand. Fan Zijan calmly threw the pen aside, took another one and continued to process the official documents. Yanmo hurried down to check. At this time, Chi Heiran was blocked in the naval yamen, and several generals shouted in a rough voice, "General, you can't transfer your anger to us just because you are forced to pay taxes. If you want to call we pay taxes, and when we say something, the general will not dare to obey, how can we ask the little princess to come forward? It is really despicable." But they didn't dare to say these words, but their eyes revealed the message. Fart, Chi Heiran stared, "If you really want to pay taxes, you still need the order from the Lord? That is your obligation, why should you ask the order from the Lord to owe you favors?" Chi Heiran also knew that the children must have done something outrageous, but could he admit it? Definitely not, so this can only be their fault. Chi Heiran curled his lips and said, "The imperial court clearly stipulates that officials are not allowed to do business, and you use servants to do business to avoid this iron law, so you should abide by the law, but you are afraid of tax avoidance and tax evasion that others don't know about. How many heads are enough to cut off? But officials have always done this for hundreds of years, so they will change when it's their turn. Of course, everyone can't say this, because it would be bad if this kind of tacit thing was announced." The crowd interceded with Chi Heiran, and Chi Heiran reasoned with them, explaining the truth, but suppressed these bearded and staring generals, so angry that they turned around and walked out. Jojo stood aside with his head lowered, and Chi Heiran glared at him, "You came back from Luzon as a quail." Jojo opened his mouth and said, "My lord, you can transfer me to Luzon again. I stay in Guangzhou as a sandwich cake. The general knows that this tax payment is imperative, and the family of the general but, so you should send me to Luzon." Chi Heiran twitched his mouth, so what did his son do to force Jojo to go to Luzon to feed mosquitoes rather than stay in Guangzhou? Seeing Fei Bai swaying outside, Chi Heiran waved Jojo down. Fei Bai came in and closed the door, and said, "My lord, the 4 young masters took all the grown-up masters to walk through the streets and alleys, and went directly to the shop to investigate the tax payment. Anyone who paid the tax and had a receipt from the yamen, they would give the shop a piece of paper. A small red flower made of silk cloth hangs in front of the door. If there is no one, they earnestly persuade them to pay taxes, but most of the shops that do not pay taxes are owned by officials. They either have sons or grandsons with them. 4 young masters, so." Chi Heiran opened his mouth wide, and asked dryly, "Does the princess know about this?" Fei Bai said sadly, "It's the little red flower that the princess taught them to tie." Chi Heiran was silent for a while, and said, "Keep it from the princess, and take them home quickly." Fei Bai's tone was even more painful, "Master, the incident is too big, and now the people of the whole city are watching, and people go in to spend more in any shops with little red flowers hanging, but there are people who are filled with righteous indignation in shops without little red flowers. People are still throwing rotten vegetables and leaves in it. Now nearly a quarter of the street shops that the young masters have not walked through are closed, and the rest are open, waiting for the little red flowers of the young masters. If we put the little ones the young masters take it away, then you claim to pay the tax. Wouldn't it be a joke? So at this time, they are neither advancing nor retreating, so they can only act as if they didn't see it and let the children make trouble?" Chi Heiran opened his mouth and asked, who gave them such a bad idea? Fei Bai, who had just recruited the hidden guards to ask for details, said sadly, "Master, this idea was discussed by the young masters themselves, so don't think about blaming others." Of course, Fei Bai will still comfort Chi Heiran. From a young point of view, the young masters are also forced. 3 days ago, the 4 children went to pay their taxes full of confidence. They stood in front of the government office and waited for someone to answer their call, but no one came after waiting for a long time. Do you feel like the 4 kids just waited without doing anything? This is impossible. At that time, the kid Chi Wensu was shocked and said, "Their skins are too thick." The other 3 nodded sympathetically, and Xiaoan was serious and encouraged everyone, "We have to make them realize their mistakes." The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1042. The 4 little heads got together, and Chi Wensu was depressed, "But we can't see them, and we don't even know who didn't pay taxes." I know who raised his hand and said, "Second uncle said he was an official." The little lion pondered, "Then let's start with their sons. If we can't see them, why can't we see their sons?" "That makes sense." Xiaoan touched her chin and nodded deeply, "We will do psychological work for their sons first, and then let their sons persuade them. This is much easier. Usually, adults will agree to whatever we want. We can also ask from store to store." The little lion turned his eyes and put forward a new point of view, and the 4 little heads got together and gradually perfected the plan. In the end, Xiaoan dictated, Xiaoshi wrote the pen, Hutu and Chi Wensu added, and wrote down the plan completely. First of all, they had to find the official's son. It was simple, they had played together, and as long as the 4 children wanted to, those children would rush up to play with them. Then they will call on them to be good citizens who pay taxes in accordance with the law, and lead them to investigate house by house. For those who have paid taxes, they will present a small red flower made by themselves. If they have not paid taxes, they will do well. They work so that they pay taxes according to the law. The children didn't discuss with the adults this time, and didn't even tell Little Bear. They went directly to the school to find Yan's whose youngest son. Yan's whose youngest son, Yan Ying, was about the same age as them. Mrs. Yan often asked him to play with the young princes of the palace, but in fact they had only met 5 times, and they were not familiar with each other at all. But Hutu still approached Yan Ying very familiarly, and asked him if he would like to play with them. Yan Yingke was 6 years old, and he was raised spoiled and pampered. In Guangzhou City, apart from the sons of the prince's mansion and the duke's mansion, the children of his family and Zhou's whose family are the most honorable. He would never want to play with Hutu and the others before. Because he doesn't want to be a follower. But seeing that Tigerhead and the others were not bullying, he reluctantly agreed to play with them. Hutu told him excitedly that they were planning to do a big thing that even adults couldn't do, and asked him if he would like to bring his younger brothers to do it with him. Yan Ying was excited when he heard it. He often heard his mother say how powerful the princes of the palace are. They can earn a lot of money and do many great things at a young age. Other people's children? Yan Ying was excited, and agreed with a reserved mouth. Hutu gave him a task, asking him to recruit as many people as possible, because they are doing a big job this time, so they need a lot of people. Yan Ying patted her chest and agreed. At the same time, Xiaoan, Xiaoshi, and even Chi Wensu all divided up and recruited many people into the group. The sons and grandchildren of Guangzhou officials were gathered directly, divided into 4 teams, and directly occupied a courtyard of the palace for training. The movement was too loud, and Mu Yangling, who was raising a baby, heard about it, and went to watch. Seeing that the children had directly copied the background of the officials, Mu Yangling laughed happily. A few little girls came over and taught them hand in hand. Because there is not enough red cloth, Xiaoan also advocated that they look for it by themselves, because they do not have the funds to afford red cloth. Xiaoan took a few bolts of red cloth from housekeeper Xia, which was said to be left over several years ago, and the little lion and tiger had also searched for the red cloth, and those children also went home to look for it. The red clothes and red gowns were stolen and cut into pieces. When the wives asked, the children said that they were going to play with the princes of the palace. The officials and wives in Guangzhou are eager for their sons and grandchildren to get close to the young princes, so naturally they will not stop them, and some even help to ask for leave from the academy. So, after 2 days of training and preparation, their tax collection team was finally formed successfully, and the props, the little red flowers, were also prepared. On the third day, Xiaoan led them to skip class collectively, divided into 4 teams, and checked one by one from each street corner past. For those who can produce tax payment certificates, they will be given a small red flower and hung on the door for them to encourage them to make persistent efforts. The children thought it was earnest. The shopkeepers of those shops turned pale with anger, because it was the first time they saw someone coming to threaten and lure them like this. Xiaoan first held a thick copy of Diqi law and read out the summary of the business tax section to him, and then the little lion said seriously, "You are breaking the law by evading taxes." Hutu and Chi Wensu stared at each other in charge. "If you are disobedient, I will ask my father to arrest all of you scoundrels." The shopkeeper's face was livid with anger, and he said with a fake smile, "Sirs, you are not in charge of this illegal lawsuit. Whether I violated the law or not is decided by the yamen. If they think I have committed a crime, you can take me in chains." Then these righteous words are useless, because an angry child will often rush out of the group of children behind him, punch and kick him, and say viciously, "If you ask you to pay the tax, you will pay the tax, dog slave, this is my shop. If you dare to be disobedient, I will let my grandmother, mother, beat you." At this time, the shopkeeper could only hold back his face and could not speak. He was tough to the little master of the palace, but he could only give in to his own little master. The 4th child saw that the child was so anxious that his eyes were red, and hurriedly stepped forward to comfort him. "Don't worry, we have to reason with them, and then do it if the reasoning doesn't make sense." The child's eye circles were red, and he felt ashamed to death. His family was in violation of laws and regulations, and he didn't pay taxes. Hutu saw his tears falling one by one, so he grabbed his sleeve and wiped him indiscriminately. "Don't feel bad, it's them who did the wrong thing, not you. Why are you crying?" The child said pitifully, "My shop didn't pay taxes, they turned into bad guys. Will you still play with us?" Of course the little lion took him by the hand and said, "Didn't Confucius say that there is no way to improve if you know your mistakes? Let's let him correct it." Xiaoan nodded fiercely, "Look, we didn't pay taxes before, but after we realized it was wrong, we paid the taxes. Who doesn't say that we are good boys now?" The child was taken aback. "You didn't pay taxes either?" The 4 children nodded in unison. "We didn't know that we had to pay taxes for doing business, but now we know that we have to make up for it." "Your adults probably don't know either, slaves, they don't know much. All we have to do is tell them, let them understand the truth, let them become good people, and don't become bad people in a muddle." The shopkeeper at the side turned black when he heard it. Who doesn't know the truth? Show off their high knowledge, right? The shopkeeper's breath was stuck in his chest and he couldn't get up or down. The child was happy, shed tears, raised his head and pointed his chin at the shopkeeper, saying, "You are a slave, I don't blame you for being uneducated. I will tell you now, you have to pay taxes when doing business. Our family is a good person, we have to pay taxes according to law. You, go and take out all the money and send it to the yamen to pay taxes."